Welcome everyone to Read the Book First. Today we'll be talking about Much Ado About Nothing by William Shakespeare, and I'm very excited because I have a new guest to the pod, Neha from The Novelty, well, half of The Novelty. I'm so excited to have you.
Hi, I am so excited to be here. I This is like the perfect timing for me to be on your podcast because on the novelty we have
Hmm.
been doing adaptations as our season theme. So we've been reading like plays and books and then watching like the play adaptation and like screen. We've been just doing everything that your podcast is all about this
Yeah.
season.
And I was just telling you a second ago, but I love listening to The Novelty. There's something about y'all's conversations that reminds me of when I was in university, of like the conversations with
Mm.
my classmates, digging into different texts. And you guys also do a wide range of books, which I love, and not just the ones that are like very popular, which, there's a place for popular books. And with adaptation focused books, there's a lot of popular things because that's how, they get made, right? So I do like
Yeah.
the range of books and just content y'all make. So listeners, definitely go check them out. I'll link everything down below. But today we're going to be talking about Shakespeare, Much Ado About Nothing. And I had not read this before we decided to do this play for the episode. You hadn't either, right?
No, I haven't.
Yeah. I've seen the movie. I think this was the 1993 was the first Shakespeare adaptation I ever watched as a kid. And
Okay.
so reading this, it felt very familiar because and it's also compared to some of his other plays. I was an English major in a university, so I've read a lot of Shakespeare, but I didn't read this one for university. But this one's one of the more, I don't want to use simple in a bad way, but simple in a good way plays.
Yeah, I agree. My history with Shakespeare is nothing like yours because I
Hmm.
don't come from a literary background. So I'm so excited to be talking to someone with that kind of background
Hmm.
about this play. But when I was a kid, not like a baby, but I would say like between the ages of 13 and 15 maybe, like teenager, I had this really fat copy of abridged Shakespeare plays
Hmm.
that were like all the plays, but like put down to like 15 pages. And Much Ado About Nothing was one of them. And so I do have like a slight recollection of remembering who the characters were and like kind of what happens, but
Hmm.
obviously the language was completely different. And I feel like part of enjoying the play is enjoying the language as well.
Yeah. And I feel like whenever talking about Shakespeare and like, in the year of our Lord 2025, people often think Shakespeare as like hoity-toity or really hard to get into, which really isn't what Shakespeare was at the time. Like he was writing these plays for the people, right?
Hmm.
And obviously he was his patrons were often royalty, so there was some like eventually he did write some plays for the royals, but I think this is one of the ones that I think is very obvious. It's a comedy, and I think it's very obvious that it is for like the people. Like it is full of sexual innuendos and dick jokes and
Hmm.
slapstick humor. Like it
Yeah.
is just messy in a really fun way, at least I thought.
No, I agree.
But within like Shakespeare context, this was written like kind of like slap dab in the middle of all of his works, which I thought was interesting. So it was written after Romeo and Juliet, after Midsummer, but before the big four tragedies of Othello, Hamlet, and two others I'm forgetting off the top of my head. But the big four, Henry IV, that's one of them.
Mm.
So I think it's interesting within that context, though, I'm not like a Shakespeare purist. I took two classes on Shakespeare, and that was almost 10 years ago. So
Yeah,
I'm gonna
it's been a
try and
minute.
remember my bits and knowledge. But as far as context within the plays he was writing, it's like right dab in the middle. And I think you can tell he's like starting at this point to really like the comedy of it all. It's like this play is it's messy in the context of the plot, but it's very tight as far as like a structured play.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward and linear as well.
Hmm.
Like we don't really get any flashbacks or go back in time. Like it's just kind of like this is what's
Hmm.
happening right now. So it's
Yeah.
easy to follow the story.
Yeah. A little like just quick summary for folks that have not read the play before we get into spoilers because I'm going to be full of spoilers. This play follows a group of folks in a little town in Sicily. We have two kind of love story plot lines, and there's a lot of misdirection and people pretending to be other people and people lying to people, but it all ends up with two marriages. And it's just a messy time. It's a messy friend group. Shakespeare loved a messy friend group. He loved the drama, and this
For
is
sure.
play is just full of that. This is only the second play I've Shakespeare play I've done for the pod. The first one we did was Taming of the Shrew. And that was actually the first episode we recorded for the podcast back before I knew what I was
Oh,
really
okay.
doing. Not that I really know what I'm doing, but you know.
Fake it till you make it.
Exactly. I guess we can, should we, I don't know if we should break down the casts of characters first or as they come up. What do you think makes the most sense?
I think they're pretty straightforward that we could just kind of
Okay.
let
Yeah.
everyone know who they are. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So the play begins as we have this country house um, who the father is Leonardo, and he has a daughter named Hero and a niece named Beatrice. And then they have some of their house servants and maids,
Staff,
staff. Yeah.
servants.
Yeah. There's like a war going on in nearby before this play starts. And that's kind of an interesting context of this play is like this is just happening just after a big battle, which we know nothing about. We
Mm,
don't know why they're battling, who they're battling. It doesn't matter, right? We just know that these soldiers
no.
are coming to war. It's giving Fleet Week, you know?
That's so true.
The prince, Don Pedro, and his crew, which includes Claudio, who's a younger, up and coming guy who's like just proven himself in battle, whatever that means.
Hmm.
And then we have
Killed some people.
Benedict. Exactly. It was like, we don't, I love that we don't know about the war because otherwise the play would be totally different. But also, a part of me is like, I need more
Yeah,
context. Like, what do you mean?
I know. Like I feel like the war aspect would have made things way more violent than they should have been to make this like the light, airy play that it is. So I am
Hmm.
glad that we don't get any of it, but it is funny
Hmm.
that they just like keep calling back to these things that happened earlier that we have literally no idea what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah. With Don Pedro is also Benedict, who is alluded to that Benedict and Claudio have, like, all these characters have met each other before. It's very, like, very slightly mentioned at. It's which is interesting as the play goes on. It makes sense that they would know each other beforehand. You know, Sicily's an island, it's a small town, like small world. I feel like they'd probably know each
Hmm.
other. With Don Pedro, we have his brother or half brother, Don John, who is ends up being our villain. And that's like the main group as we go in. As the men are coming back for more into this town, we find a little bit of history between Beatrice and Benedict. And it's immediately like there's tension. They're like, she's like, oh,
Hmm.
I can't believe he's coming back. I hate him kind of vibe immediately.
This, you know that this is going to be like enemies to lovers trope. Like you just know
Yeah.
it's going there
Yeah.
immediately.
And I was when I was thinking about when this play was written within his other Shakespeare plays, so Taming of the Shrew was like one of the first plays he wrote, which is enemies to lovers, but in like a bad way. I don't know if you've ever read The Taming of the
No, I
Shrew.
haven't.
Have you seen 10 Things I Hate About You?
Yes.
So that's an
One of my
adaptation
favorite
of
movies.
it's amazing
Oh,
movie.
okay.
So that's an
One of my
adaptation.
favorites.
Yeah, it's so good. But the play, so like they have that tension like they do in 10 Things I Hate About You, but it's like much more abusive and not
Mm,
good. Yeah. There's an Elizabeth Taylor and Richard, what's his face? I can't remember his last name. Burton, Richard Burton movie of that, and they really play up the abuse. So I think it's interesting that that's like the first enemies to lovers that Shakespeare wrote in a comedy, loose based comedy for that one sense. And then here we are like 10 plus years later where we have another enemies to lovers, and it's way more appropriate, like what we would consider enemies to lovers in a like modern romance book kind of way, where they just don't like each other,
hmm.
which is way more acceptable than abuse. But when the men come in, immediately Claudio sees Hero for a second. Hero does not have any lines in like the first two acts.
Hero's like the most not main character that I've ever seen in a Shakespeare play. Like she
Yeah.
truly doesn't do anything this entire play.
Yeah, which is so funny because her name is Hero, and it's a very
Mm,
much a play on words because they even mentioned like they make later on Claudio makes kind of like a pun of sorts talking about how she is the hero in the way like
yeah.
so it's just like it's so interesting that he names her hero and yet she does nothing.
She literally does nothing. She plays
Yeah.
dead. That's it.
Yeah, literally. But Claudio is just like puppy love, like just like immediately head over heels, which is, in Shakespeare's time, in the like insta love is like very much a thing. Like if this happened today, it would be kind of embarrassing. But like within the historical context, it's like, okay, we get it. Also, you just got back from war.
Hmm.
You haven't seen a lady in a long time. Sure. Um,
Yeah, he's probably really
yeah.
wanting something.
Benedict and Beatrice have their their first interaction together in the play, and it's like an immediate spat, and I love how witty they both are. Often when we have men and women who are like spatting at each other in Shakespeare, it's usually like the men usually end up becoming the smarter or more successful one. But I feel like throughout this, Beatrice is at the same level, if not wittier, than Benedict to me.
Hmm. Yeah, I was so surprised by Beatrice's character in this whole play because she's truly the only not only woman but person with any kind of agency. She just really like shows herself and is like not afraid to say what she wants, and she like denies
Hmm.
at some point later in the play she is proposed to by Don Pedro, and she's like, no, like I don't even feel bad for saying no,
Hmm.
but no.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, like the agency of it all, because her dad is not there, her parents are not there, right? So she is a young woman who is under the care of her uncle, and her uncle's like, hey, she's gonna do what she's gonna do, and I just hope she's okay. Which, like, we love to see that in a parent in Shakespeare time.
Yeah.
No one's forcing anyone's hands, at least when it comes to Beatrice.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I think she's witty, and later on we can talk about like the if I were a man, you know, of it all.
Hmm.
But at the beginning, I love how witty she is, and she calls out Benedict. And I also love that the other men are like, like they don't like back Benedict up at all. Like they let Benedict and Beatrice have it out.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes it obvious to me that they had a relationship before this play
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah, I think later on, I think in Act Two, Scene One, she says, when she's talking to Don Pedro, she says, indeed, my lord, he lent it to me a while. She's talking about his heart, and I
Hmm.
gave him use for it, a double heart for a single one. Marry once before he won it of me with false dice, therefore your grace may well. I have lost it. And so she's basically saying that they had a full-on relationship before, but
Hmm.
somehow he cheated her. And I'm so curious to know what this means. Like did he like just have a relationship with another woman? Did
Hmm.
he like deny her like marriage? Like what happened? We have no idea.
Yeah, we have no idea. And I love ambiguousness of that because with adaptations, especially with, this is made to be acted out on a stage, it gives the people, whoever are acting it out, like so much room for interpretation there, which I think that's what this
Hmm.
specifically this play does really well, is there's a lot of room for interpretation with the acting. Obviously, like Shakespeare knew what he was doing when he was writing these plays, but I think this one
Hmm.
it's very obvious to see those little bits that you can take and be like, oh, it was just like they had argument, or no, he like cheated on her, or he went off to war instead of staying. Like it could be any of the things. I totally forgot we could talk about the title before we get into it. The title, Much Ado About Nothing. So, nothing was really noting back then. So, Much Ado About Noting. And noting had
Yeah.
two meanings. One was like hearsay, eavesdropping, which is very obvious because this play is about gossip. This
Yeah.
it's just he said, she said, they said, whatever. But also noting no apostrophe space thing or NO space thing was a Shakespearean or Elizabethan slang for like a vagina.
Yeah, I read that too.
Yeah, so much ado about women's parts, is another way. Like so this play on words within the title And then I guess we can talk about towards the end if we really think this is a play about women or about
Mm,
the value of women. It's the gender roles throughout this play are very interesting to me.
yeah, that's true. But I agree. Let's save it for the end because I feel like
Yeah.
there's a lot before that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I did want to bring up one thing before we
Yeah.
get further into play is at this part where I was like, oh, Claudia and Hero like love each other, and then Beatrice and Benedict like hate love each other. It
Mhm.
reminded me so much of Jane and or sorry, Elizabeth and Darcy versus Jane and Mr. Bingley because Benedict and Beatrice are basically enemies to lovers and they
Mhm.
just have these monologues of them being like this person's awful, which is basically exactly Mr. Darcy and Lizzie.
Mhm.
And then the love at first sight, but like a small hiccups along the way that have nobody to fault but external figures is Mr. Bingley and Jane. And so I
Mhm.
just thought it was so interesting that like Pride and Prejudice is pretty much copy paste of these two relationships.
I did not even think about that, but you are so right. That and like
Yeah.
and it makes sense because like Jane Austen would have of course read a lot of Shakespeare. Like she was a very well-read woman, you know. And I think that makes a lot of sense and I that's so cool. I never thought about that.
We recently did Emma for the podcast too, and Shruti, my co-host, she actually touched on a lot of similarities between Midsummer Night's Dream and Emma as well, with all like the mismatching and things like that. So I just think it's interesting how Austen kind of developed these stories into something of her own for her time.
That's really cool. And now I'm like I want to go in and pick that apart even more. I want to reread this and see where else,
Yeah,
you could see Elizabeth. But I think those are really good mirrors. Especially Beatrice and Elizabeth are so similar, where there are these women who really shouldn't have that much autonomy in their life within the social structure that they're in, but yet they do, and they say what they
hmm,
want, and they are both like, for different reasons, but they're both like, I don't want a marriage for marriage's sakes. Like
yeah,
Beatrice is very obviously scorned by her past with Benedict, whereas Elizabeth is much more
hmm,
scorned by just the idea of wanting a love and not just societal marriage
a
force.
business, yeah,
Yeah.
arrangement, yeah.
Yeah. That's so interesting. That's so fun. Cool. Oh my gosh. That's great. Still in Act Two, they have the masquerade because what do you do when you welcome back soldiers? You throw a party and you get a
Mm.
little crazy, which is what they are trying to do here with the
And of
masquerade.
course it and of course it had to be a masked ball because that's only going to add confusion and plot to the
Hmm.
story.
Yeah, and as they're getting ready for the masquerade, Claudio's telling the prince, Don Pedro, that he's like, "Oh, I love Hero. She's beautiful." And Don Pedro, I love I mean, of course he's a prince. He's gonna do what he wants, but he's like, "I'll woo her for you. I'm gonna pretend to be you, and then she'll want to marry you." Like the logic does not make sense.
No, it's the most ridiculous thing ever. Like, if he is not capable of wooing Hero, then he should not have Hero. So, like, why are you doing this for your friend?
Yeah. And and if Claudio's like an up and coming like a youngster, let him try to woo a woman by himself. Like let him learn how to do that. But
Yeah, the prince is like not having it. He's like, "This is on me, guys. I'll take one for the team. I'll happily woo this girl for you."
like I love how messy specifically Don Pedro is. He's like, what if I solved every issue by pretending everything is not what it is? It's like, okay, a bit of a
Yeah,
control
basically.
freak.
That's
Um,
hilarious.
yeah. And so the masquerade starts and we get a lot of like little almost vignette conversations of different pairings throughout the masquerade, which I think is like a fun way of writing a party, so you can like essentially cut between these different conversations throughout it. Margaret and Balthazar, who are both two staff members for the different groups, who are just chatting to each other, and Ursula and Antonio are also chatting to each other, and like there's like just innuendos thrown in and like sex jokes thrown in, and it's just classic Shakespeare comedy.
Hmm.
And then we have Benedict, who is masked, talking to Beatrice, and Beatrice supposedly doesn't know it's Benedict, though I think she
What
does
do you
know.
think? Yeah, I think so too. I think depending on like the type of adaptation that you watch, like the movie or whatever version of the play, because I actually read this alongside the BBC Shakespeare play, and because I was having a hard time like putting
Hmm.
faces on, because like there's so many like people that switch
Yes.
disguises, all the things. So I was like, I need to see this visually to
Yeah.
understand it. And so I think depending on what the version that you watch, people actually do interpret Beatrice knowing that it's Benedict. Like she's like
Hmm.
very aware that it's him. But when I read it, I felt like she didn't. I felt like she was just really just hating on this guy and was like just talking to a stranger and
Hmm.
just gossiping about him.
Just gossiping and talking shit, which like,
Mhm.
hey, we've all done that at a party, Like I don't fault her for that.
Yeah.
And that she essentially calls Benedict the prince's gesture to his face. And Benedict's reaction to any like diss from Beatrice is like utter shock. Like he's like, what?
Yeah.
Someone that said this of me? Like he's like so hurt. And I love how vulnerable they make his reactions. It's like he's
He's
about to
so
cry every single
offended.
time.
Yeah. He
Yeah.
hates that. It's like, I wonder how his reaction would have been if it was anybody else that said it. I feel like
Hmm.
because it was Beatrice that said it, that he was more offended by this
Hmm.
joke. But yeah, it's so funny. His reaction's hilarious.
When she calls him the king or the prince's gesture, I think it even makes more sense within the play because as Benedict, as we follow him, he does have these ridiculous reactions, not just to Beatrice, but to like the gossip he overhears. He's like, and in most adaptations, they make it very slapstick funny. And I think we see him as a gesture like throughout it. Like he is a very
He
like
is
goofy humor.
comedic. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, I really enjoy that. Another layer of the gossip is Don John and his company. They overhear Don Pedro's plan to pretend to be Claudio, which is of all the plans in this play, I think that one's the silliest to me.
Don John is just he's desperate. Like he just
Mhm.
does not know how to make his way happen. He's just desperate to do all these ridiculous things to somehow
Hmm.
create drama within this community.
Yeah. And Don John, whenever we get his like little like conversations with his men, he is so again desperate and dramatic. Like have you read Othello or seen
No, I
Othello?
haven't.
I
Yeah,
think,
I've
and a lot
seen
of
versions of
a
it.
lot of people think that Don John is was like Shakespeare's first try at a character that would eventually become Iago, and I think there's a lot of similarities there. Though in this version, it's a very less called for and not as actually evil. An important thing too is that Don John is a bastard, which as we go through this play, I think is very telling for like the themes of like infidelity, right? And Don John
Hmm.
is used to be like it's hard. It's he's like captured by Pedro or just kind of forced to be there because he's his half brother. And but he's just frustrated. He just like wants to get his revenge. We are not really sure why, besides the fact that he, is not a full heir of whatever princedom there is. Again, the context we don't have.
Yeah, but then yeah, and also it's like what is he gaining by doing? Like he's not
Hmm.
except for potentially ruining Don Pedro's life, but also not really because he's targeting Claudio,
Yeah.
where I'm like, what are you trying to gain here by doing all this?
Hmm. It's like he has these big villainous plans that don't make sense again. And maybe it's just the Don
No.
Pedros and Don Johns just don't have logic with their plans or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
He does go up to Claudio and he's like, "Hey, Don Pedro actually is gonna steal Hero from you." It's just so high school, you know?
Which is why I think Shakespeare plays translates so well to high school settings. Like you talked about Tame and Shrew and 10 Things I Hate
Hmm.
About You, because truly this is how high schoolers act. Like I
Absolutely.
cannot imagine a 30-year-old woman and a man having these kind of conversations in this day
Mm-mm.
and time, at least.
Yeah. Don John and Claudio probably know each other from the battle, at least a little bit. But Claudio just believing Don John, who is like known to be a sketchy guy within the context, and he believes him. immediately, not like the guy, the prince that he's
Yeah.
been working with. Like Claudio is just, he's not even like, he's just, he's like so young
He's
and immature.
Yeah, he's just a boy. I think
Yeah.
that's his character. He's just like this. He's not a full-fledged, fully
Hmm.
fleshed out man yet. He's just learning, hopefully learning as this play goes on. I really hope that he doesn't continue to be this person through
Yeah.
here his marriage with Hero.
Yeah. He's definitely, it's interesting, his reactions to things as things go on. Before Claudio can make like a huge issue, he does like sulk off. Benedict and Pedro find him and they're like, hey, we did it. We wooed Hero for you. You can now be betrothed. Everything's fine. And he's like, oh, okay, good. And then he like starts speaking in like these like love towards her. And again, Hero doesn't say anything.
Mm-mm. I think Beatrice even says like either say something or kiss him, fool. Like, what are you
Yeah.
doing? And then they end up kissing. So yeah, Kira
Yeah.
doesn't say anything throughout this
And
entire scene.
she doesn't say anything to them. And then she follows someone else's actions. So like, whereas Beatrice has all this autonomy, Hero has none of it throughout the whole play. And
Hmm.
like I don't know if that's for like comedic effect that we just don't find funny nowadays. Like maybe that was funny in the 1600s. I don't know. But I don't, but also like I don't think of all the bits from this play, I don't think that part is meant to be funny, you know?
Yeah.
I can't figure out exactly why Hero is so just whatever. But then I have to think about
Not
also,
present.
yeah, you'd have to remember like all these characters during Shakespeare time are going to be played by men, you know? So maybe there's some humor in
Hmm.
that. Um, Especially with the comedies, they were like known to be very campy with the acting and the slapstick humor. So like maybe there is some like stage directions that was very popular at the time that we're not getting from the text with Hero, but I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, I mean, I just kind of pictured her not like just I think even in the adaptation that I watched, the play adaptation, she was just kind of like smiley and dazed
Hmm.
and just it was supposed to come off as like, oh, she was so in love with him that she was like so speechless and
Hmm.
happy and like whatever. But I do wish we at least got like one monologue from Hero at some point in the play.
Hmm.
But we truly don't get anything from her. Give us
Yeah.
nothing.
Yeah. She is giving nothing.
Yeah.
After the masquerade and after Claudio and Hero are betrothed, Don John and his crew create another plan to try and mess everything up. They decide that the night before the wedding, they're going to bring Claudio and Pedro to go look at what would seem to be Hero sleeping with someone else. But really, it's going to be Conrad, one of John's men, and the maid Margaret, and he's just going to call her Hero throughout their acting. And like this is like I think one of the more devious plans, insinuating that this poor girl Hero, who we just talked about, has no seemingly no autonomy in this play, making her seem as if she's sleeping with someone else before the wedding. But also poor Margaret is stuck in this little plan.
Yeah,
She has this relationship with this guy, but then he's gonna just use that so he can get money
I know.
from Don John, and like that part's icky.
It's a little gross to think about. But also, Margaret just kind of ups and leaves after this. Like, she doesn't tell anyone, like, no, it was me. Like,
Hmm.
no, like, she just disappears into the sunset. And I
Hmm.
think we see her again a little bit later, but I'm like, you could have said something.
Hmm. Yeah, she doesn't like think show up till like the second wedding, I think. Again, which
Yeah.
is unfortunate. So that plan is in the works, but then we also have another plan, which is Don Pedro has decided that Benedict and Beatrice should be in love. And so he has decided to get everyone to be on his page and be like, okay, guys, we're gonna go talk about how Beatrice loves him in front of him. And girls, y'all gonna talk about how Benedict loves her in front of her. Ready, go. And again, Don Pedro's messy, and I love it.
Yeah, I think these two parts of the play were probably my favorite. This
Yeah.
whole thing where like however you adapt this, it doesn't matter because it's just going to be funny just by default because of the way that it was written. I think Shakespeare
Hmm.
does such a good job of making these two scenes just like so hilarious.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think throughout this play, I think Benedict and Beatrice are the most interesting characters, the funniest scenarios, but also they don't have like the effects of their mishaps is not disastrous. Whereas with the Claudio and Hero plotline, they are very disastrous as the play gets into, which
Hmm.
I think is interesting that a comedy has like a moral to it because usually his comedies don't have morals to it. They just end in weddings, which this one also does. Because like in Austen, it can't be a comedy unless it ends in a wedding, right?
Yeah, yeah.
If not two. Um, and I like how it cuts from Benedict's like monologues to himself to the group like loudly talking in front of him. I think it's meant, you're right. It's just written so well and so funny. It doesn't matter like if you play it just off the page or if you want to like make it goofier, it's gonna be funny.
Yeah.
We have a song that's in here. It's in Act 2, Scene 3. It's called The Song, but it has it's either called often referred to as the Sigh No More song or the Hey Nani Nani song. And this is often used throughout different film adaptations, which we'll talk about later about the song itself. I love the men just trying to play up that Beatrice is in love with him and she is so in love that she might hurt herself. Like, because that's how they know that's what's gonna make Benedict change his actions.
Yeah. I'm surprised as well because Benedict and Beatrice obviously have this past relationship that we don't know anything about. Where if I knew the kind of person Beatrice was and I heard all this stuff about her, I would not believe it. I would be like, what are you talking about? Beatrice is not like that at all.
Hmm.
But Benedict is so quick to be like, oh, Beatrice really truly loves me and doesn't doubt it even for a second.
Hmm. Yeah. In one of his monologues, Benedict talks about how if he is ever, because he has this big like monologue about he's going to be a bachelor forever. And if he is going to marry,
Hmm.
the lady has to be very, again, very Darcy. She has to be like very wise and very pretty and very smart, but also kind, but also like all these things that's impossible for a
Yeah.
woman to be all at once. And then immediately after hearing this, overhearing this conversation, he's like, just kidding, she's the one.
I know. He's just I
Yeah.
wonder if the like bachelor for life thing is just like an outwardly projection that he's trying to be like, oh, I'm probably not going to end up with Beatrice anyways because we had this whole spat that I'm just going to die alone. And
Mhm.
so immediately when he hears that Beatrice has a thing for him, he's like, oh, wait, 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 I take that back.
Just kidding, guys. It's fine. I'm gonna go be in love. And it's interesting too, because throughout this play, I think Shakespeare plays with this idea that men can be, they can sleep with as many people as they want at this time and be fine. They can be bachelors for life and be fine, but women can't, right? And we see that play out. And I think Benedict obviously is playing along those like, gender norms of this time, especially with his monologues.
Hmm.
I also think it's interesting. So when the men are convincing him, it's like Beatrice told Hero, and Hero's like, she wouldn't lie. We know that Hero's virtuous. So of course it's true. And then they also say Beatrice is going to hurt herself. Whereas when the women, Hero and Margaret and Ursula, trick Beatrice, they talk about how Beatrice is rude and she would never accept this. And that's why he's so ashamed to come. Like it's interesting the tactics they use to convince each other are so
Yeah.
different. Um,
That's so true. And Beatrice is, I think, like Hero obviously knows who Beatrice is. So I think when Hero's like, if she hears me talking about the fact that Hero loves her, that's not going to affect her. Like she's not going to
mhm.
care. In fact, she may use that against him, like knowing the kind of character Beatrice is. So she knows to make it about Beatrice, and that's the only way that to Benedict's heart.
Yeah. And and it's interesting too because this is the first time Hero's really talking, and it's to trick her bestie cousin to fall in love with a man because a man told her to do it, right? So like we finally get Hero
Hmm.
to have lines, and she is very smart the way she is leading this conversation, but like
Hmm.
she couldn't do it on her own free will. It had to be because someone told her. I don't know. I
No.
just poor Hero. Hero deserves better in so many
Yeah, for
ways.
sure.
Then it's the night before the wedding, so we have the scene of John's trap, we see that come to fruition and it works because again, Claudio is immature. His emotions are on his sleeve in a bad way. Like he's just so fragile. And a lot of the men in this play are pretty
I
fragile.
know, poor guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I think
Hmm.
that is surprising. But I think it's Claudio is so susceptible to like other people's opinions. He really see maybe this is why Claudio and Hero are perfect for each other because both of them just lack any kind of individuality at
Hmm.
all. They're just like, oh, this person said this. Okay, sure, let's do it.
And again, like with the high school thing, it is very much like they are following where they're being led and they're not giving anything against
Mhm.
it. And their reactions are always based off someone else's reaction first, right? With Claudio, it's all based off Pedro's reactions. And I think with Hero, she obviously follows Beatrice a little bit, but more so her dad, which I think makes sense if she's a young lady
Yeah.
in this world. The trap falls. Claudio is just distraught and decides instead of breaking off the wedding, you know what he's going to do? He's going to shame her in front of everyone at the wedding. And that is just
This was crazy. This was like honestly so out of pocket. I was like,
Mhm.
this is insane.
like shame is so powerful, obviously. And Pedro's like, and John, obviously, we know John's like, yeah, more shame, more distraught around this. This is great for my evil plan. But Pedro's like, yeah, that makes sense. You should shame her. At this point, I think
What?
Pedro, like, I want to see like Pedro just like likes the drama. And so he just wants to see it played out, at least in the, the text is some
Yeah.
kind of how I read him. Maybe not in the like the movie version, but in this version, I see that. And it's just like, what a reaction, to publicly shame this poor girl.
hmm And once the wedding scene comes into the picture, it's not written this way. So when I was kind of glancing over that scene in the in the written form, I was like, oh yeah, this is pretty bad. Like this is like kind
Hmm.
of gross to read about. But most of the adaptations, the scene is so violent. Like Claudio
Hmm.
will like push and hit and like it's so physical that it really kind of took me by surprise. I was like, damn,
I
this is not okay.
I agree. And it because this play leads to slapstick humor, which I think has a place in Shakespeare, especially loves slapstick humor. But then that bit, it's like, no, you crossed the line, guys. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. Um, then we have the Watchmen scenes with Dogberry, which this scene, when I was reading this, confused me so much. I was like, why do we care about these Watchmen? And obviously, they have a very important part to play. Like, it's very obvious. Shakespeare's like, okay, I need someone to catch them so everything can get happy endings. Okay, let's put this in here and just like fix
hmm
this weird plot hole. And at least Dogberry is a very funny comedic relief, but like, you don't need a comedic relief within a comedy. I just think it's a weird choice overall.
Yeah. I I was trying to do my research on Dogberry because I was confused by his character and like his
Hmm.
monologues were they're supposed to be said in a specific way to be funny, but when you're reading it, at least for me, it was hard to grasp that comedy a little bit without hearing it. And so I was like reading all this stuff on Wikipedia about like Dogberryism and how there's so many
Hmm.
characters that are based off his character of like saying the wrong thing, which is what makes it funny.
Hmm.
But I don't know if it was just the adaptations that I watched or if it's just his character, but it wasn't effective for me. I was kind of like, can you just move on with the plot? Like I was like kind of
Yeah.
like annoyed by his character a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's so confusing because he's like supposed to be like he's lost like some stature in the world. He's trying to like he wants more power, but also he can't write, which becomes a thing when they have to eventually do the judging of the guys they catch, and that becomes a thing.
Yeah.
And I agree. It doesn't make sense. It breaks the flow of this play. Um I
Yeah.
understand plot wise that they need Watchmen to catch the guys to have some other one say this is true, some third party. But I feel like they could have just had the Watchmen like say something at the beginning when the men come back for more and then show up at the end. You know what I
hmm
mean? Like it could have been something smaller and
Yeah.
do the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it ended up being this whole like side story that I like wasn't invested in for whatever
Yeah.
reason.
And then I can also see it being like a chance for them to like change the set piece on the stage or for the characters to change
Mm,
costume, like that kind of stuff that happens in plays often.
yeah, that's true. I didn't think about that.
But like that doesn't, it's so long that it's too much of that to
Yeah.
me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's I agree.
Then it's the day of the wedding. We do have a scene of Hero and Margaret getting ready, Hero ready for the wedding, and Margaret keeps like doing like again these like sexual innuendos, where Hero says, "God give me the joy to wear it, the dress, for my heart is exceedingly heavy." And Margaret says, "'Twill be heavier soon with the weight of a man." Like, it's just again very obvious of where Shakespeare's
Yeah,
going
that's
with
funny.
this. We have a bit of Hero again, but it's within the context of her getting married, right? So like poor Hero doesn't pass the Bechdel test. I don't think this play really does either. But specifically Hero doesn't. There's like a little bit about Margaret and Beatrice talking about Beatrice feels sick and it's like is she lovesick or is it she actually sick? But they talk about this plant that Latin name includes Benedictus in it as like a joke between Hero and
Mm,
Beatrice or Hero and Margaret. And I thought that was kind of fun, the little like plant Latin
yeah.
humor. Um,
I didn't know it was a real plant. I thought they were just like, oh, like you're sick with like,
mhm.
and then people will make a joke about like, oh, you're sick with like the Monday blues or like make it obvious. So I thought it was like similar to like, oh, they just like made up this name. So I
Yeah.
had no idea it was an actual thing.
Yeah, it's an actual plant and they used some people use it for like remedies, but it's not like a main plant that you use. It's kind of like, oh, if you have it, might as well use
Mhm.
it, which I just thought it was kind of little plant humor. It tickled me. I don't know. I
Yeah,
thought it
that's
was
funny.
funny. Then Dogberry comes and tries to tell Leonardo, hey, we caught the guys. Oh, yeah, important. The watch and Dogberry catches Don John's men bragging about how they got paid to lie about Hero in this whole scenario. So Dogberry's like, hey, guy, we got the bad guys. I did my job. Please give me attention. And Leonardo's like, go away. My daughter's getting married.
Yeah.
Which, fair enough, you know?
Yeah,
Um,
I could tell that that would be a stressful moment for him
yeah.
for sure. That he was like, I don't care, just let me get my daughter married.
Yeah, yeah. Go talk to someone else official. I'm busy. Um,
Yeah.
the wedding is such a disaster. And like even from the start, when the friar is like, have you come to marry this lady? And Claudio's like, no. And then Leonardo's like, oh, he means to get married too. Ha ha ha, wordplay. Ha ha ha, everyone laugh. And then it gets disastrous.
Yeah, it spirals from there.
It's so bad, and I feel so bad for Hero because immediately Leonardo, her father, believes this lie. And I think that's what really hurts the most here, right? It's like, yes, the heartbreak of Claudio, but like we see Claudio believe anything he's told. So it's like, okay, we
Hmm.
saw this coming. But her father, Hero's father, just like immediately being like joining the slut shaming.
Yeah, it was
It's,
rough. I was not a fan of the
mhm.
behavior of everyone except for Beatrice, of course, because
Yeah,
she's like the only sane person in this entire community, apparently.
yeah.
She's truly the only one that's like, oh, like, no, this is a lie. Like everybody else is like, oh, he said it, so it must be true.
Mm-hmm. Because Beatrice, stays with Hero most nights, but for the not that night, for whatever reason, she hadn't. And so they used that to like prove that Hero, did sleep with someone else and is a part of the scandal. And everyone dismisses Beatrice and dismisses Hero, except for the friar and Beatrice, and Benedict, because Benedict isn't like as present for the wedding. Like he comes in and like gets the information later. Hero faints and Claudio and Pedro leave before she comes back too. And so the friar's like, okay, here's what we're gonna do, guys. Here's how we're gonna fix things. We're gonna pretend that Hero died so that he feels bad and the truth can come out. Like, what?
Which is also like, why is this idea coming from the friar of all people? Like, I just
Hmm.
like this guy has been not involved in this at
Hmm.
all until now. And he comes up with the most out of pocket idea. And then everybody's like, this makes sense. This
Yeah.
makes complete sense. Let's do it.
And it reminds me a little bit of Romeo and Juliet, right? Because the friar in Romeo and Juliet helps with the whole plan.
Oh, right. I
And Romeo
forgot
and
about
Juliet
that.
was written before this. So I'm like, is Shakespeare making fun of his own play? You know?
Maybe.
Maybe. I
Could
don't
be,
know.
yeah.
Yeah. Leonardo also like talks about like he's like almost suicidal at this point. He's like, someone give me a knife. I can't live with my daughter being a slut. And I'm like, dude, one, you obviously don't know your daughter because and you believe your daughter. One. Two, that's a bit much. My guy. Calm down.
Yeah, I'm like, relax.
Leonardo has this like big like grief monologue about everything as this all is happening. And Benedict comes to like comfort Beatrice, who also is like distraught because her cousin's life has been essentially ruined. The whole town thinks that she's in this whole scandal of infidelity. And Benedict and Beatrice choose this time to confess their love to each other, which I found interesting.
I mean, I keep bringing up Lizzie and Darcy, but I feel
Hmm.
like it's similar to like when Lizzie finds out that Lydia's been kidnapped by Wickham, and that's kind of the moment where Darcy and Lizzie kind of are like, wait, maybe we do love each other. It's like in the middle of this crisis, are they
Yeah.
able to like see that they actually truly had feelings for each other?
Yeah, that's true. I didn't think about that. And I think that makes sense in the way that like your emotions are so big and like there's your guard is down, like you're just everything is vulnerable. Um, but they talk like they tell each other that they love each other in like kind of weird ways. They're like, I guess I love you. Like if I love nothing, I love you. Like it's not the most heartfelt proclamation of love within Shakespeare's plays, but it's not like, it's not
Hmm.
like they're just throwing it to the side. It's like a weird middle ground of
It's,
proclamation.
yeah, it is endearing in a way, just knowing both their
Hmm.
personalities. But if you
Hmm.
just read their love part of like just by itself and not really put it in the context of the whole play, I would be like, what are they saying? Like, do they love each other? Do they
Hmm.
not love each other? Like, what's going on?
Yeah. And then when Benedict asks her, like, hey, how can I help with this? What can I do? Beatrice is like, go kill Claudio.
Yeah, and then is the like famous "Oh, that I were a man"
Hmm.
speech, right?
Yeah.
And I think this is probably my favorite scene in the whole play. Like it's
Hmm.
just so powerful. It's like because this whole play is like a comedy and it's like supposed to be funny and kind of dumb and whatever. But this scene was the only one that I really felt was like, oh, she actually is feeling something and I totally feel for her.
Yeah. And she's like, if I were a man, I could go do this. I could get my revenge for my cousin. I can solve these problems. I could have all this autonomy that she is so close to essentially having. She has as much as she can within the systems of the society that she's living in. Often in Shakespeare plays, he does play with gender and gender roles. Like in Twelfth Night, people are pretending to be other people. It's like it's what She's the Man is based off of, right? So there's a lot of gender swapping in that one. And often people will
Hmm.
reference this model or this conversation between Benedict and Beatrice as Beatrice actually wanting to be a literal man. But I think after reading this whole play, I think it's not really what she doesn't want to be a man in like the gender way. She wants to be a man in the autonomy way, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Be able to take more actions. And Benedict's reaction is like, hey, I know you're feeling a lot and I want to support you. I can't kill Claudio. He's my bro. Like, we just went through war together, literally. I'm kind of like a
Bro
mentor
code.
to him. Yeah. He does end up challenging Claudio. Benedict goes to Pedro and Claudio and is like, hey guys, y'all are guilty. You killed he tells them that she's dead because he's on the plan that she's that Hero's pretending to be dead. So they like, hey, you are the guilty of her death. No matter what she did to you, that is worse. She is now dead. And
Yeah.
and he plays it, obviously he's saying that she's dead, but he's playing it as if like her reputation. is dead is really what he's actually saying. So he's doing that like the truth
Hmm.
within the lie kind of speech, which I liked that it's obvious that
Yeah.
he's feeling these things truly. And it says like you have to challenge like he challenges Claudio to a duel instead of actually just going and killing Claudio, which I think makes sense because he knows that Hero is actually alive. He's like, why would I kill someone if someone's actually alive, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
I think it's also interesting because Benedict has been like this like kind of aloof like person in love, like comedic relief with all of his like funny monologues throughout this play. That this is the part where he kind of shows like that he has some substance actually. Like
mhm,
we're like, oh, he's not just like this funny guy. He actually is a voice of reason to these men and is able to kind of put them in their place to be like,
mhm.
no, what you did was wrong.
Yeah, yeah. And they're able to like accept that they are at fault. Dogberry ends up coming to I think the friar, maybe or maybe just Leonardo and all of them, and tells them what they did find out. They're like, one, also Don John has like ran away at this point. He's escaped.
Yeah.
So Dogberry and the Watch are like, hey, Don John's gone. That's sketchy. Two, here's the guys, and hear what they're saying. They got paid to fake this. Also, Margaret had no plan in it, so don't hurt Margaret. She's just a bystander in this
She's just a girl.
situation. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so everyone's understanding that Hero is actually innocent, but Claudio and Pedro still do not know. And so Leonardo goes to them and it's like, hey, you really messed up, my guy. Here's what you can do. You can, since you were going to be like a son to me, you can first go to and go read an epigraph at or epitaph at her tomb, mourn her, and then tomorrow I have another niece that I haven't talked about, and you're gonna marry her.
And
And,
I love how this is like voiced as a punishment, but truly
mhm,
like Claudio's like, oh, I get a wife out of this. Cool.
yeah,
Like this sounds great. Like
yeah,
why? It's just insane to me.
yeah, and Don Pedro is also cool with it, and again, Claudio just follows everyone else's direction. And I just it's so interesting because like obviously and like even up to now, but like arranged marriages are like such a normal thing, especially during this time. Up until this point, all of the marriages have been, or the talk of marriage has been about love slash lust. That this is the first time we have like an arranged marriage of sorts. But again, Claudio just like,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah. I mean, he gets a girl, so like what's the problem here?
yeah. And Leonardo like has money. So he's like, I'll get some money, right?
Yeah.
So he goes and he reads the epitaph, which has like the play on words of the word hero here and giving hero some actual like substance
Hmm.
within his epitaph. And I'm like, this is the most like it's not the best written epitaph, but also from Claudio, I think it's really profound because he's such like no
Yeah.
thoughts kind of character.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I didn't think about that because I was kind of bored by this monologue. I was like, all right,
Yeah.
like
It's like,
I don't
okay.
really believe anything that you say.
Yeah, it's if anyone else said it, I'd be like, this is fake. Whereas Claudio, I'm like, maybe he does have like some grief and shame because just because he
Yeah.
gives nothing throughout, you know, he just mirrors everyone else's reactions.
Hmm.
And then the last bit is the second wedding, which I find so interesting. So they have the men come up and get ready to get married, and then they bring three or four women, all like covered or
Failed.
not
Hmm.
veiled, thank you. And I believe it's Margaret, Ursula, Beatrice, and Hero. And so Hero comes up to marry Claudio, and he unveils her, and they're like, "Yeah, old Hero's dead. This is the new one." They end up getting married and they end up being happy, which I feel like this is so wild a choice, you know?
No, this ending frustrated me so much because I was like, Claudio literally beat you to the ground, and now you are just kissing him and accepting him as a husband. She does give like a little bit of like oh, like you were my husband and I'm your wife or like whatever,
Mhm.
but it's really just like I still love you kind of speech and not like how dare you. And
Yeah.
I wanted Hero to have her how dare you speech so bad,
Yeah.
but again, she just gives us nothing. And I was like, no, I'm so mad.
And I want Claudio to grovel for at least a second. Like if there was just
Nope.
like one line of or like one stanza of groveling, one stanza of how dare you from Hero, I would be okay with them ending up. Like it's not the best, but it's Shakespeare. I can accept it.
Yeah, I
But
did actually see that a couple different like play versions of the
mhm,
scene that Hero actually like slaps Claudio and then they kiss and I was like,
mhm,
okay, like at least she gets
something.
that.
Yeah.
But in the play, like there's maybe it is like kind of hidden in the direction that it's kind of up to interpretation of how you want
Hmm.
Hero to accept Claudio's love and forgive him. But there isn't anything dialogue wise to show that
Hmm.
she has any like animosity towards him at all. And I'm
Yeah.
like, this is so frustrating.
Yeah, I agree. But then it leads to Benedict being like, whoa, while we're all at this altar with this friar, hey, Beatrice, you want to get married? Which is like such a weird like proposal, but like again, it's within the this world, it makes sense. Um,
Yeah.
and then they like have this moment where they're like, wait, people, I heard you that you liked me more. Oh no, you liked me more. And then they're like, oh, we don't like each other again. But then Hero and Claudio bring out love poems and love letters that they had written about and to each other. And I love that because we see Benedict on stage trying to write a love poem and like
A song.
bumbling up,
Yeah.
yeah, bumbling about his rhymes and how he's not good at rhyming. We don't see Beatrice writing a love letter. And so I really
No.
like that addition of like, oh, she's doing that off stage. So like they do actually love each other. And then
Hmm.
they end up getting married. And I thought that was a fun way of ending that plot line. Oh, and Don John gets captured and brought back.
Yeah.
Because why? I don't know.
Yeah. I don't think my opinions of anything would have changed if Don John just ended up running away either. He just like
Right?
comes back and they're like, this is the guy that did it. And they're like, okay, let's have a party. And he
Yeah.
just leaves. And I'm like, okay, cool.
I really enjoyed this play. I mean, it's not perfect, obviously, but I think it's one of the comedies. It's the least problematic of the ones I've read, besides maybe Midsummer's, but that has bits that I'm like about. But anyways, I really enjoyed the Beatrice and the Benedict plotline so much. But like ever since you mentioned that it's Lizzie and Darcy, I'm like, you're so right. This is Lizzie and Darcy. It's
Yeah, it
so
is.
I don't have any fun facts about the actual play, but I did read that King Charles the First, in his personal copy of the second folio of Shakespeare works, he retitled this as Beatrice and Benedict, which I think
Oh, interesting.
like it makes sense. That is the plot line that is the most entertaining, right? It's the funniest, it's the most believable, the characters are the best.
Yeah, but I guess like plot wise, it's really Hero and Claudio
Hmm.
that are like the main focus. So I'm surprised that I mean I didn't really picture either of them being more important than the other. I kind of took them
Hmm.
like to be these parallels that were going on. So I think it's interesting that they decided to focus on Beatrice and Benedict
Hmm.
over
Yeah.
Claudio and Hero.
Yeah. I think what's also interesting in this, and we kind of touched about it throughout our conversation, is the role of gender and the men in this play being very vulnerable, but also falling into the traps of like classic masculinity, where like
Hmm.
it's written almost in the way that like, oh, they're so vulnerable to like these jades thrown at them by the women that it shows that the women are stronger. Like it's in this weird like critique of that like manliness that they're trying, these army
Yeah.
men, these soldiers are
Yeah,
trying to like,
soldiers, yeah.
yeah.
I was actually very like was thought it was funny to think about the fact that in this play, it's actually the men that are the matchmakers. Like they're the ones that are making the decisions to be like, oh, let's have Beatrice and Benedict do this thing. And it's Don Pedro that's like making all these plans to like
Hmm.
ruin people's real. And I think like with gender stereotypes. It's like you would assume that it's like high school girls that would be doing these things and having, and the boys don't care and they're like
Hmm.
nonchalant and like whatever. They'll just like come and take things as they go. But in this version, it's the men that are making all of the decisions, which I thought was funny. But at the same time, it's also the men that really only believe the men as well. And so even with the Claudio and Hero thing at the wedding, it's like even though Claudio and Beatrice, or even though that Hero and Beatrice are saying like, no, I didn't do this thing, like just because a man says it, even Hero's own father is the one that's believing it. And with Claudio too, like he just is believing everything that his like fellow comrades are saying and doesn't even stop to think once about like the person that he claims to love and like her personality and like what she brings to the table in their relationship. And so I really think this is like a man's world. Like this whole play is just truly about the man.
Hmm. Yeah, which is so interesting with the like the slang term used kind of hinted at with the title, where it's much to do about women, but really it's about the men and
Hmm.
how they manipulate each other, and everyone's manipulated. Even like every single man is manipulated at some point, except for maybe John. But it's just also interesting that because John is a bastard, that he is a product of infidelity, and so therefore he has no power. And so when Hero is pointed out to have also like been adulterous, she then like it's such a huge deal. Like that's like the biggest sin in within this play, and John like that's why John, even though he didn't do it, he's just the product of that. So it's just
Hmm.
interesting the mirroring of Hero and John in that way,
Yeah.
um, versus the other characters. It just I don't know. I just it's fun. Shakespeare again knew what he was doing.
Yeah. And I think it's also interesting to think about like female honor versus male honor. Like in this play, female purity and female honor is equivalent to like their virginity. And the fact that Hero had this like that she may have cheated on Claudio
Hmm.
at some point. I think the quote that they say is death is the fairest cover for her shame. So it's like she should die because she cheated on this man.
Hmm.
But then at the same time, if men do this, it's like fun and games and like it's just how men are and that's how we should
Hmm.
accept this community and how people are. And so it's just interesting to think about it in that way. And also between Hero and Beatrice, Hero's chastity is put on display and everybody is like open to scrutinize it, but nobody questions Beatrice and her like purity in any way, even though she's approached by, I think, at least one man in this play, at least, that she
Hmm.
is approached to with marriage. Like Don Pedro's like, will you marry me? And she's like, no. But she, again, nobody questions her chastity. So I'm just like, it's just interesting to see the difference between how Hero is treated versus Beatrice as well.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, listeners, for listening to this podcast, and thank you, Neha, for joining. Where can folks listen to the
Yes.
novelty?
Yeah, so the novelty is available on all platforms. We also have an Instagram called the novelty.pod, and we also have a newsletter where we release newsletters twice a month, plus a bonus one for our paid subscribers. So if you are interested in our conversation today, you can follow us in any of those.
Mhm. And I love you guys' newsletter. I do follow y'all on
Oh,
Substack.
really? That's
Yeah,
so
it's
fun. Yeah, we
it's
love it
a great
too.
time. Yeah. And make sure listeners to like and follow the podcast on your preferred platform. Follow us on Instagram at Read the Book First Podcast. Rate us 5 stars. If it's not 5 stars, you don't have to worry about it. Um, thanks for listening, and remember, read the book first.